Last episode, we painted the engine and started on the bottom end until we reached a little hiccup. So while waiting for that part, tackled a bunch of other jobs along the way. This episode, we finally can start with putting the nice, clean and painted engine back together. Cannot believe that's the engine done for the most part. But no time to celebrate, onto some more laborious tasks. In particular, a lot of wire brushing and grinding. It seems every single step of assembling the gearbox is filled with fiddly aspects to it, making a seemingly simple job turn into a good few hours of work. After finally putting it all back together, I had to pull it all back apart again due to the fact that I hadn't properly engaged the reverse gear in the correct spot. So after putting it back together again, everything's working really well, except, and this has been unchanged by me yet, but there's just so much play here. So what it looks like is these are supposed to be together. They're supposed to be pressed up pretty nicely, but because of that, it means when changing gears, ends up being a bit of slop. I'm pretty sure. The most annoying part about this though is it's like the most obscure nut to do, to which I've only seen people on YouTube and stuff make their own out of like a big socket, and then they got to like cut all these little nicks out of it to even slot it over and fit in the little nooks. So I don't really know how. I need a little bit more research to see exactly how much play, because I think if I do it too tight, it'll lock up the whole thing and it'll be causing friction and resistance. But I can almost guarantee there's not supposed to be that much play. So I don't know how I'm going to do that, but we'll figure it out.
With yet another thing I have to wait for in the mail, it was time to turn our attention to completing the disassembly of our front end, starting with the windscreen, which turned out to be a two-person job. The sound you hear is 40 years of corroded nuts and bolts, certainly made for a drawn-out and difficult time for the two of us.
Nice. Not a whole lot of metal left there.
With the windscreen finally out, it can only mean one thing: more wire brushing.
First one came out so easily. This one, even with all this and now I don't even care about it, it's still so glued in with, I don't know what, it looks like a combination of a few different adhesives. I don't know what they are, but this black stuff's useless, but then there's some weird white stuff and there's some clear stuff. I don't know, it's just a shambles, but this is cooked.
No matter how much research you may do, how many restoration videos you watch, nothing will ever prepare you for the amount of time you will be spending preparing surfaces and stripping it all back for painting. I'm painting the windscreen frame to match the other galvanised bits from last episode, using a cold galvanised primer and top coat for better protection and a close enough finish to the freshly galvanised pieces. Now to get the bulkhead out. There's not a heap of footage of this process, but out of the entire build, this was the bit that nearly broke me. The hardest, most awkward nuts to undo, getting rust and dirt in my eyes, constantly jamming my knuckles into the chassis to do my best to loosen the bolts, but we got there in the end.
Yeah! Chug it down there, just for now. We're almost finished. Wow. Man. We're going to be wire brushing the whole sort of front half of the chassis, but at least this way it gives me the easiest access to it all, because it is very difficult. I'm still going to be wire brushing the back half as well where it needs it, but the main area of concern for me was actually the front half, because it is just more exposed. I feel like it's had more water on it, Then we're going to treat it with rust bullet, then finish with the rust bullet black, give it a nice finish, making my life a lot easier. I wish I could have attacked it earlier, but it's going to be so much easier now that the bulkhead and everything else is out of the way.
Here we go.
Here we go.
The amount of surface prep that you see in these videos is a mere fraction of what it truly entails. The sub and bulkhead combined with more wire brushing and grinding really got to me. I'm not saying this for sympathy, but rather being realistic about the difficulties of a project this large. It can be easy to want to cut corners or skip through aspects of it that suck, but in the long run it'll only come back to bite you. I'd be lying if I didn't say I've had to remind myself of this multiple times along the way. With an exciting work trip approaching, it was a relief to get the 2 coats of rust bullet on the chassis just before it was time to pack our bags and head to the airport. Next episode, we go on our first international trip in 5 years for a much needed break, and upon returning get stuck straight back into prepping Nigel for more paint.